requested tutorial series that I'm just gonna start doing. Um, so from the top, we're starting with absolute basics. You open Blender, you're gonna see this screen. Right? You got your default cube, you got your light source, and you got your camera. I'm gonna go over the absolute basics in this video. So if you know things, go to one of my future videos and find the things that are more tailored towards you. This is just baseline. Right. Down here at the very bottom, actually, I'm gonna start from the top. Okay. This we have all of our like little viewport things that we can go to. Just various things that just tools that Blender offers. We're not gonna touch on any of those because half of them I don't even know what they do. We're gonna just stick to viewport, 3D viewport. So for 90% of the stuff you're gonna be doing for 3D modeling is in this viewport right here. None of this other stuff you really need to touch if you're just doing 3D modeling. To start, we have your object mode, right? You click on something, you can get your options. Edit mode is, you can change it. Change the vertices on your object. This is also achievable by pressing tab to switch in and out of it. You have sculpt mode. Actually, I'm going to go back to edit mode and tell you a bit more about it. Edit mode, if you want to select up at the top here, you have the individual vertices. You have your edges, select the edges. And you have your faces, which selects the whole face. You can press E to extrude, S to scale, R to rotate, and then when you have R pressed or S pressed, or pretty much anything pressed, you can press X, Y, or Z to lock it to the axis when you're rotating it. You can also press R to rotate. Then it is you can press G to move things. So like if you select something, you can press G and you can move it. I'm rotating my screen right now with middle mouse, right? And then you can also right click the screen and it'll give you more options here. You can select a face and go subdivide. You can also achieve these by going up to the top here and clicking mesh, and it will offer other options as well. Get more options there, but generally I just use the right click because it's easy to subdivide it again and again and again. Control Z to undo. Control S to save, most importantly. And then, of course, you have the Control C, Control V, but it only works in object mode. You press G to move it. H to hide. Alt H to unhide. Also, you don't have to have an object selected to unhide it. Like, I can just go Alt H and it unhides everything that was hidden. This is useful if you're like working on something and you need to get behind it. You can hide it, work on the thing, and then hide it and you're done. Then we have sculpt mode. You have all your brushes. Before you ever do anything in sculpt mode, you want to come into edit mode and you want to select your object, and then you're going to go into the modifiers tab. Modifiers basically just let you add things to your it's basically just like a computer assisted edit mode. Like say I want to do array, like I want a bunch of things in a line, you can use array. So generative, deforms. Deforms change what already exists into a different shape. Generate makes, heavy modifications to what exists, because it's like making a new thing essentially. So before you do any sculpting, you want to come down here and do subdivision surface, and you're just gonna click that a couple times, hit apply. Cannot do it in edit mode, by the way. Go apply it, and then now when you go into edit mode, it's a bean. If I now go back to sculpt mode, I can start sculpting. Different brushes do different things. This is the snake hook, right? It stretches it all out, right? As you can see, it's getting kind of chunky. To stop that from happening, you can turn on Dino Topo, and it will assist in that problem by making new vertices as you go. You can also mirror it by going X. You'll mirror it across the X-axis here. So if I make changes here, it will appear on the other side, or should appear on the other side. Yeah. Like so. This works in all directions. Just like that. Now, modeling is not going to be the sole thing that you do, because you're going to be like, oh, come back into object mode, this is awful. A lot of people prefer to freehand model. I prefer to freehand model, where I basically go and you're gonna go into add. This is how you add new things, by the way. You can go mesh and add things in. I prefer to just place objects down. Also, when you place an object, you get this little tab down here. You can edit properties of it. Like I want maybe 8 sides instead of 16. Now it's 8-sided. Things like that. It just makes it a little easier. What was I gonna say? There's tons of little tips and tricks. I'm not gonna go too far in depth with it, but you have this little tab over here. It helps you. You have beveling and all that stuff. I probably only ever use beveling in this tab. Everything else I do with booleans. What boolean basically does is I can take two shapes and subtract them from each other, and it makes like a, here, like I'll show you. Stick those in each other and be like, okay, now that's that, and then apply it, and now it is cut. Quite useful. But let's get our cube back. All right, so from here, you got your sculpt mode and everything. So once you sculpt something, if you do use the sculpting approach instead of just, you know, extruding and shaping things as you see fit, you are gonna have to do a retopology, because sculpts are typically very polygon heavy. So you're gonna have to go back over it with like a reskinning. You cannot just like have the computer like reduce the vertices by like unsubdividing it. It will not work. It will leave you with a mess. Because the computer doesn't really know where things should be exactly if it subdivides it back. Or unsubdivides it. But also I should probably mention that you can go into add image reference, and it'll put in a picture as a plane, just a flat image, which you can then move behind your object. And when you're aligning to the axis with this little wheel up here, you can use your picture as a reference. You can like have several, it's like the same copy, like at different angles and whatnot, just to kind of help you shape things as you're making it, so you have better proportions. If you're making like a person, you can have a picture of like a base template person in the background. If you know, just whatever you need, just put it back there. basically you can like trace off of things. But I don't 100% recommend doing it like exactly. Like have some creative freedoms with things you do. Don't just copy stuff. Um, Back in the modifiers tab, um, I'm going to explain each of these very briefly. Array, bunch of things. You can offset them however you want. Bevel, very explanatory. It just bevels edges. Um, Build or a boolean, I showed you, it just subtracts two. It can also add two. It can union. Um, Build, it basically is just an animation tool. I never touch it, honestly. It basically just makes it to where you can break down a shape and then reassemble it later. Decimate, that's your unsubdividinator. So if you ever need to like unsubdivide something, there you go. Like for example, you took a face and you subdivided it a couple too many times, right? Now it's a big problem. You can go into this, the decimate, and just remove those until you get the proper amount, and then you can just apply it, and you're back to where you were. You can also use it to create like unique shapes and interesting geometry if you're into that. Edge split. I honestly don't know what this does. I'm gonna be real with you. I've never used it. You can look up a separate video for it. Mask, it just I honestly have never used this one either. Not really essential. Mirror, it's a mirror. It just duplicates the thing across an axis. Of course, it's going to be its own axis off of the origin. So if I like, as you can see, it is off of the origin. Multi-resolution is basically the opposite of decimate, except you can make like, I don't know, it's very convoluted to use. I don't recommend touching it until you're more experienced. I may be misinforming you on that. I actually know, I'm thinking of remesh, I'm sorry. Multi-resolution, I have no clue what it does. Remesh, however, is you can do like block geometry, you can smooth things out, you know, all that. Voxels. Sharp. I usually use smooth when I'm scaling up things. You can use remesh to create blobs for sculpting as well. Um, it's good to do if you don't like to just subdivide things a bunch. Because it can lead to like weird shapes. Remesh kind of like keeps the same geometry, so you can kind of block out things with big blocky shapes and then remesh it and then sculpt out off of that. Let's see, screw. It spins things. You can change the screw angle. It just takes a shape you have and spins it. This can be useful for making like special shaped things that, you know, like are round if you don't have the patience to sit and like sculpt a, like for example, handle or something. You could go to like a side view and just make like a plane, just a flat plane, and you could just make like a interesting shape with it, you know, and then go and add your modifier screw, and then it creates the shape. It's very useful for creating things. I usually use this alongside like booleans and things like. You just gotta combine your tools. Skin, it basically creates a solid shape. Um, it's kind of difficult to use. You're better off just extruding things, honestly. Um, it does kind of explain a lot of these if you hover over them as well. But solidify is if you have like a mesh that you want to make thicker or something, like a piece of clothing on a character or something that you need to adjust. Like I use this for gloves a lot, where if I want to put gloves on a character, I'll duplicate their hand and then use a solidify modifier on it and just make it a little bit thicker than the actual hand itself, so it looks like a glove. But it's really just a copy of the hand. Subdivision surface, I showed you that. Triangulate, it just adds a bunch of triangles to things. Probably better see it on the other one. Yeah. Yeah. And you can just change these to various settings. It just makes things tries. That's all it really does. It takes quads and makes them tries. Volume to mesh is interesting. Very seldom will use these, especially these last two. Wireframe is good for making like floor meshes and things like that. So like if you want like it basically takes the outline of a shape and makes it a solid thing. You can adjust the thickness as well. This is very good for making like floor grates and stuff, or just generally structural supports. If you don't want to sit there and model every single corner, you can just throw down a pillar and do that. And then we have the deforms. I almost never touch any of them besides shrink wrap. The only one you really need is shrink wrap if you're going to be doing modeling, because what that basically allows you to do is, say we have our 3D model that we, here, let me just make some random garbage real quick. Alright, so we have this. It is way too high poly count for anything to be useful off of it. So what we do is we create a plane, scale down, and then we give it a shrink wrap modifier. And then we shrink wrap it to our target, which is this. And what that does is it makes it stick to the surface of it. You can just adjust the offset. I usually go to like 0.1 or 0.2. And then what you're going to do is, just when you're, this is called retopology, and you go and you just keep adding little, you just keep extending it around and it'll wrap it to the thing. So you can kind of experiment with retopologizing your models to make them more efficient for rendering and things like that. So that when I like hide that, it'll still maintain the shape and all that, and then you can like shade smooth it. You don't ever need to use like super high poly stuff because shade smooth exists. It just makes it look better. It also makes your computer not explode. All right, that is about all of the basics that you really need.